I consider myself completely a writer. In any work life that I do right now, I'm a writer. I used to do nonfiction. I did a lot of newspaper and magazine articles. I went through a period of doing PR, and now I'm exclusively doing poetry and a blog. Well, I was a literary columnist for the Boston Globe for about 7 years, and then my section of the Globe closed. And it was kind of fun, and I liked having that little outlet, so I decided to continue it in a modified way and do this blog. I think I write for my close group of friends that I know are reading. A blog is strange because you send it out into the world and you don't know. It's always a surprise that somebody mentions, oh, I saw that on your blog. So I think that I'm thinking of the people that I know are reading it. And I do try and introduce them to writers that I like, and sometimes I have a couple of features in which I ask a writer to talk about a new book of theirs, and I ask poets to tell a little about where a poem might have come from, and then just in general I talk about books I've read, writing and process. I don't.
You don't?
Just every once in a while somebody will mention, and I do get emails, and I think my age cohort is not quite as comfortable with the commenting on the blog, so I don't get lots of comments, but I do get personal emails and notes. So I think all my life. I think I remember being a child and sort of narrating my life to myself in my mind as if it were something going down on paper. So I think I just grew up with books around me all the time, and this expectation that the written word was something very wonderful. Very much, yeah.
Did they, were any of them writers themselves?
No, my mother, though, was a librarian, so an honorer of books. And my grandmother, who was my maternal grandmother, was an immigrant to the United States. And to her, I think she was very influential in that, because I remember her talking about my becoming a journalist, as if that was a really wonderful vocation and something to really aspire to, and the idea of someone who was educated and could write kind of being just the finest type of person. I was a journalist. No. I mean, there are people who make money as a journalist. I was not among them. I was always busy. I always had something to do, but I was never crazy juggling deadlines and, overloaded. Yes. Everything. I think what you put into any art form is just a reflection of who you are. And I think for me, the poetry is a compilation of everything. I have things that I've written that specifically speak to my growing up and my parents, and then to more recent experiences of being widowed, and that the whole kind of recognition of mortality that comes with that stupidly I seem to have not noticed before. I think I write for myself, but I think I write, and then I keep telling my husband that he is my muse, so I do write a lot of things knowing that he's going to be reading them, but I think I write to kind of explore something that I'm feeling, but that I feel could be then something that speaks to other people. So to myself, but with the hope that it goes beyond that. At my age and my point in my career, I think I have to redefine what satisfaction is. And I've really very specifically thought of where my satisfaction comes from, since it's probably not going to be fame and fortune and wonderful awards. But I have had the wonderful experience, particularly with my first collection of poems, which were about the illness and death of my first husband. I have had the very lovely experience of having people come up to me after a reading and telling me how much this spoke to them and how much it's meant to them, and of people who've bought the book to send to friends who have been through a recent widowhood or some kind of loss experience. And then hearing back from those people, and to know that I have made that kind of connection and have spoken to people and created something that's meant something to them, I think has been a gift to me. Everyone, I think so many, there are writers whose work I read and I think, not great, but much more than that. There are writers whose work kind of stops me in my tracks, and I think I could never do anything like that. And I have friends who write poetry who read poetry before they sit down to write, and that's something I could never do. I'm too much in awe of the people who've written before, whose work I like. Linda Paston is one contemporary poet who I do draw a lot of inspiration from, because when I was first starting, it felt to me as if her work was the closest that I could aspire to doing that was something related to what I was trying to do, using, I guess, what Robert Haas has called the materials at hand, just the minutiae of daily life and crafting it into something that's very lovely and transcendent. Well, I guess the classic is read a lot and write a lot, and you know, wiser people than I have said that, and that holds true. But I think it's also to notice things and to enjoy the process, and to recognize that you don't always need the fame and fortune, to kind of try and define what it is that gives you pleasure in why you're trying to write. They are lovely possibilities to have. I think to be able, to take the second one first, to be able to take time to do whatever is your creative endeavor, without having to worry about what it's going to bring in terms of roof over the head or food on the table, is just such a blessing. And for many years I did some of that, and felt very privileged to do that, or had enough time around more profitable activities. In terms of the space, I do know of many people who've carved out little niches in the edge of the dining room or whatever, but to be able to close the door and not clear off the desk at the end of the day is very nice, and I have mostly had that and have felt, again, very, very fortunate to have that.